They say a bride's wedding day is the happiest moment of her life. But for me, it was the day I lost everything. My name is Ifeoma, and this is my story. The church was breathtaking, draped in white and gold, overflowing with family, friends, and love. My mother was in tears. My father stood tall, with pride. Even my younger sister, Adago, my maid of honor, adjusted my veil with a bright smile. It should have been perfect. Yet, something felt wrong. Cheek was late. He was never late. Not once in our 4 years together. But here I was, standing at the altar, bouquet trembling in my hands, while whispers rippled through the crowd. Then, as if on cue, my best friend Amaka's phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at the screen, and instantly the color drained from her face. She turned to me, gripping my wrist so tight it hurt. Ifeoma, we have to leave, now. I didn't ask questions. I just ran. Still in my wedding gown, my heart racing, my heels clicking against the pavement as Amaka and I sped towards her car. She barely spoke as she drove, just shoved her phone into my hands. A text from an unknown number, a hotel name, a room number, then 4 words that shattered my world. He is here. Hurry. It took us 15 minutes to get there. The longest, most excruciating 15 minutes of my life. We stormed through the hotel doors, past the confused receptionist, down the narrow hallway to room 407. My fingers trembled as I reached for the handle. Locked. Then, without thinking, Amaka raised her fist and pounded on the door. Silence. Then, movement. Scrambling. Panicked whispers. And then, the door swung open, and my whole world ended. There they were. Chiki, my fiancé, the man who had promised me forever. Adago, my sister, my own flesh and blood, both of them, naked. The room reeked of sweat, sin, and betrayal. The sheets were tangled, disheveled. Their bodies still glistened from what they had just done. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. No, this can't be real. Adalgo yanked the blanket around herself, but she didn't even look ashamed. Cheek, on the other hand, was frozen, caught like a thief in the night. I took a shaky step forward. How long? Silence. How long? Cheek swallowed hard, his eyes darting to Adalgo, as if waiting for her permission to speak. Then she did something that made my stomach turn. She smirked. 6 months, she said, voice dripping with something almost triumphant. My breath hitched. 6 months. While I had been planning my wedding, while I had been choosing my dress, my cake, my flowers, my sister had been sleeping with my fiancé. And they weren't just sleeping together. They were planning to run away. I turned to Cheek, my vision blurred with tears. You were going to leave me? He had the audacity to look guilty. Ifeoma, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I let out a hollow laugh. Oh? And how exactly were you planning to tell me? Over wedding cake? I was shaking now, my nails digging into my palms. Adalgo rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic, Ifeoma. You were never meant to have him. Something inside me snapped. Before I knew it, my hand flew across her face. The slap echoed through the room. Adalgo gasped, clutching her cheek. But I was already walking away. I would not give them the satisfaction of watching me break. For days, I stayed locked in my room. I didn't eat. I barely spoke. The world felt numb. Until one evening, Amaka stormed into my house, her face flushed with excitement. You won't believe what I just found. She shoved a USB into my hand. Watch it. My fingers trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. It was a video. At first, I didn't understand. It was grainy, shaky, a hotel room. Then I saw her, a Dalgo, with another man. Not just any man, Cheek's best friend. And she wasn't just with him. She was pregnant. My breath caught in my throat. A Dalgo had betrayed me, but now she had betrayed Cheeky too. I sent the video to Cheek. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. His voice was shaking. Ifeoma? I didn't know. I smiled. Let him suffer. 2 days later, my mother called. Cheek and Adalgo's plan to run away is over. He left her. Poetic justice. But just as I thought it was over, something happened that shook me to my core. Adalgo showed up at my door. She was crying, and she swore. Cheeky wasn't the father. Then who is? I whispered. She hesitated. Then, in a voice so soft, so broken, she whispered a name that made my skin crawl. Papa! The moment Adalgo whispered that word, I lost all feeling in my legs. Number. It couldn't be. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You're lying, I choked out. Tell me you're lying? Tears streamed down Adalgo's face. I wish I was. The weight of her words crushed me. My own father. Our father. The man who raised us. How could he? But then it hit me. She had lied before. She had looked me in the eye at my wedding and smiled, knowing she was sleeping with my fiancé. Could she be lying again? I straightened, pushing down the nausea crawling up my throat. Prove it. Her eyes widened. What? A DNA test. If you're telling the truth, we'll know soon enough. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. Days passed in slow motion. I barely ate. I barely slept. Then, finally, the results arrived. I sat in the clinic, the paper shaking in my hands. My heart felt like it would explode. I scanned the document. 99.9% match. My breath hitched. It was true. I looked up at Adalgo. She was shaking. Mama can't know, she whispered. She can't survive this. Tears burned in my eyes. My mother, the woman who loved our father so blindly, how would she even begin to process this? But before I could speak, a voice echoed from the doorway. She already knows. We both turned. Mama stood there, eyes filled with something dark, something I had never seen before. Mama walked in, her hands trembling, but her voice, steady, cold. This isn't the first time, she said. My stomach lurched. What? She swallowed hard, looking at Adalgo. You're not the only one. He did this before. To another woman. The room spun. I grabbed the chair beside me, my vision blurring. Who? She hesitated. Then, in a whisper, she said something that made my blood turn to ice. Your best friend's mother. My blood ran cold. Amaka's mother. My best friend. The same Amaka who had rushed me to that hotel, who had held me when I cried. The room tilted as realization crashed over me. If my father had done this before, could it mean... I turned to Adalgo. There's another sibling out there. She gasped. You mean Amaka? The moment the words left her mouth, I knew. Amaka was our sister. Please, not her too. I stormed into the house, and there they were, Cheek, Amaka, together. She looked up startled. Ifeoma, what are you doing here? But I couldn't even breathe. Tell me this isn't happening. Cheeky rubbed his temples, sighing. Hey, Ifeoma, you need to calm down. Calm down? I took a shaky step forward. Even after Adalgo, after everything, you came here? Amaka clenched her jaw. I didn't steal him from you. You left him. You should have known someone else would take him. The betrayal burned hotter than fire. My sister stole my fiancé, and now my best friend had him too. I let out a bitter laugh. You know what's funny, Amaka? She crossed her arms. What? I stepped forward, locking eyes with her. We share the same father. Her face drained of color. What? She whispered. You're sleeping with the same man your own sister slept with. Silence. Then her scream tore through the air. Amaka was never the same after that day. She cut off Chike immediately. She couldn't even look at him without feeling sick. My sister Adalgo? She disappeared. She packed her bags and ran. To where, I don't know, and I don't care. As for my father, he didn't get to escape. I exposed everything. His sins, his abuse, the child he had outside of marriage, his disgusting secrets. It spread like wildfire. His career, ruined. His reputation, destroyed. He had spent years controlling people's lives. Now, his own life was in ruins. And me? I walked away from it all. Stronger, wiser, unbreakable. I stood at the shore, watching the waves crash against the rocks. The past weeks had been a storm, one that nearly drowned me. But I survived. I had learned that betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals you. Family can fail you. Friends can deceive you. Love can destroy you. But in the end, you choose who you become. I turned my back on the wreckage, walking away with my head held high, because the past no longer controlled me. Never beg for love. Never fight for those who betray you. And never, ever let pain make you heartless. This is not the end of my story. It's just the beginning.